Hello and welcome once again to this Red Gaming Tech video of myself and Marta, where as always I'm here with the latest news from the tech world in the last 24 or so hours. We're going to start things off today with a little something from Intel. So this is more of an update really, so I'm not going to spend too long on this topic, but you may recall that back in May, Intel unveiled plans to launch 7nm products in 2021. Now obviously they do not want a repeat of what has happened with 10nm, where it's just been delayed and delayed and delayed, to the point where there was even rumours for a while that they were going to cancel this particular architecture. Obviously they didn't, and we are now finally starting to see the fruits of their labours when it comes to 10nm. And according to a report from digitimes.com, they are now stepping up their efforts towards making that dream a reality. So according to their sources, they have been placing orders for their EV fabrication process since August, and again according to their sources, they are basically now kicking those plans and orders into high gear. So yes, it's a couple of years away, and technically they could release December 31st 2021 and still be on time, but obviously they want to try and kind of get ahead of themselves as much as they can, so they are laying the groundwork, I suppose you could say, for the beginning of their plans for 7nm. Obviously they are aware that AMD are ahead in this regard when it comes to pure NM versus NM. AMD are obviously in the lead because they're already on 7nm, and the next time we're going to see Ryzen fresh and new, it's going to be 7nm plus. So they are very much aware that they kind of have to play catch up a little bit here. But speaking of AMD, we're going to move over now to the Ryzen 5 3500. So you may recall a couple of days ago we had a listing of the specifications and expected prices for the Ryzen 5 3500 and the 3500X. So this was showed to us thanks to a Thai media outlet by the name of Extreme IT, and again we saw expected specs, boost and base clocks, as well as cache, TDP and all that lovely juicy informations, as well as some benchmark graphs as well. So obviously this wasn't official. I mean, they look pretty legit, but it wasn't official. But we have seen them kind of sort of confirmed in a way, because we've had a tweet from Momomo, and you can find a link to their tweet in the description below this video. So what they have basically tweeted, if I could use words, that'd be fantastic, is a couple of listings on the CPU-Z validator. So we have two separate listings that were uploaded today. So let's talk on the first one. Now they are both for the Ryzen 5 3500X. So the first listing lists it at 3867.16 megahertz. And you can see everything on screen is pretty much in line with what we would expect based on those previous specifications that we had. There's even a lovely screenshot of CPU-Z here as well, so we can see the core voltage, the core clock speeds, and obviously you can see the cache information, TDP, and even the temperature as well. So again, this is pretty much in line with what we expected. While the clock speed is slightly different on the second listing, we see 3899.09 MHz being showed here. We do have two different sort of generation of motherboards being used. On the first listing we see a Gigabyte A320M being used, and on the second one we see an MSI B450M Mortar Max. Now obviously, when it comes to B versus X on this one, it is just going to be a few extra features and a few other things like that that make the difference between the motherboard generations, but it is still worth mentioning that they are on different generations. So again, this pretty much runs in line with what we have previously seen. So again, don't take this as, okay, yeah, it's solved, pack it up lads, we can now fully expect these specs 100%. Obviously, we should wait for official confirmation from AMD when it comes to this information, but this has given a lot more weight to those listings and specifications, and obviously the benchmarks that we saw as well just the other day. And you can see on the right hand side of both listings on the CPU-Z benchmark positioning, it lists it around the i5 8600K on both listings, above or below depending on which one you're looking at essentially. So it's looking promising for this lower end Ryzen 3 processor. But we're going to move on now to the PlayStation 5. So before I get into this topic, I just want to say that I'm going to be covering this, all the pertinent information news-wise, but Paul is actually working on a deeper analysis of this particular piece of news. Should be up in the next few days, fingers crossed. I'm not sure exactly how his progress is going, but regardless, you're going to get a deeper look into the PS5 situation, quite soon from Paul. But all that aside, we have a report which basically is saying that the PS5 is going to be launching at the same time as a PlayStation 5 Pro variant. So you might go, okay, that would be a bit strange. What is the source for this? That's obviously quite important. Basically, it was started at the Computer Entertainment Developers Conference in Yokohama, Japan. And basically, there was a journalist by the name of Zenji Nishikawa who basically commentated all this live and basically has started a wildfire rumour across the internet. You know how these things go. And he didn't have too much to say about the rumours themselves. When questioned about it later, he simply said, quote, "This time from the beginning, the aim is for the PS5 and PS5 Pro to be released simultaneously." So let's look back at what happened with the PS4 before we talk about whether or not we believe this is legitimate. Basically, we had the PlayStation 4 come out, obviously, and then the PS4 Pro came out 3 years later. And it was a significant upgrade versus the vanilla PS4. Now, obviously, we still had compatibility. There wasn't PS4 Pro only games and stuff like that. Sony said that from the start, and obviously that is exactly what has happened. But obviously, there was a significant difference in price, and obviously the capabilities and performance that each one offered. Obviously, you had the checkerboard rendering 4K of the PlayStation 4 Pro, and certain games had the option to have increased frame rates and stuff like that. But I'm just not sure if Sony would do this at launch. I mean, it's not outside the realms of possibility, of course. It is very possible that Sony could do this. Obviously, they do have different models of the PS4, but usually it's just like, hey, this one has more storage or whatever, outside of the different skins and stuff you could buy for them. All that aside, it normally is just storage in terms of actually any real tangible difference. Would they have two models competing against each other released at the same time? Potentially. I mean, they could have one that's like, hey, here's the super shiny amazing version, and here's one that's still good but more affordable. But the question really is, like, what improvements could they actually bring to the table for a PS5 Pro? Obviously, the PS4 Pro came about 3 years later, not just to give the PS4 some breathing room and all that, but obviously they were working on improvements at Sony, working on, what more can we give this console while still working on the same, architecture, while still making sure that a game can run on both systems, all that sort of stuff. So they wanted to know what they could squeeze out of the specs that they had, while obviously tweaking here and there. And I feel like that extra time is critical to, new technology is going to come out, new methods are going to be discovered. Just the time to research and develop is so important. Like, half the reason a console takes so long to create is that research and development time. Who knows how many prototypes will never see the light of day because they were scrapped. They had an idea that just couldn't work on the current technology, and maybe there'll be some new tech that will come out in like 3 years, just for example, that will make the PlayStation 5 Pro possible. I mean, obviously this wouldn't be outside the realms of reality to happen. It happens all the time in the smartphone area. You get the Android whatever phone or the iPhone or whatever, and you get like the normal version and then the shiny version at the same time, and obviously they're the same phone but with different features. So it is possible, but I'm just a little bit skeptical about this one. I mean, again, it is definitely possible. Is it likely though? I'm not really sure. I'm not too convinced that it is, but I could very much be wrong. I'm not basing this assumption on any inside information or anything like that. This is just my feeling of just like, I don't know if they would do this, or if it would be smart to do it this way, when if they waited, they could have a PS5 Pro that is really capable of that much more. They've had some tweaks that those extra years gave them, or something. Obviously, I don't know what Sony's been up to behind the scenes, so it's very possible that they've been working on the PS5 for yonks, and they've already figured out everything that they already need to figure out when it comes to what extra power they can squeeze out, what extra features they can squeeze out. I want to know your thoughts though, guys. Do you think that Sony would actually do this? Would they release a PlayStation 5 Pro at the same time as the vanilla? And if they were to do that, how do you think the market would receive it? Like, would you feel a bit like if you were to buy the vanilla PS5 that you were getting cheated out of the real experience? Or would you go for the PS5 Pro if you could afford it? Or would you just go with the cheaper model? I'm very, very curious to see your feedback, because I think how it's received is more important than all that stuff I just said about the features and differentiating itself from the vanilla model. Let me know your thoughts, guys. I'll be curious to get your feedback on this. Anyway, that is me done for this video. Thank you so much for watching. As always, your support is highly appreciated. Do remember to like and subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.